Today we're going to talk about a topic that's very different from all of the other topics we've talked about. We're going to talk about the organizational level of analysis. So you remember at the beginning of the class we talked about levels of analysis in science, and in organizational behavior we identified the individual level. We didn't talk about the dyadic level, but that's two people interacting. Then you have the group level. So that's kind of the domain of psychology, really, the individual and dyadic. This is the domain of social psychology. And when we enter organizational level of analysis, we move to another set of disciplines, which are sociology and anthropology and ethnology. So instead of looking at small groups, we're looking at large aggregates of people. So because of that, it's going to look very different from everything we've seen so far. We're going to borrow from different sets of theories. And the organizational level of analysis, sociology, is also the same level of analysis that you study in economics. So how do large groups of people behave? So for example, sociologists might study the dynamics of different neighborhoods in a city. With different socioeconomic backgrounds, with different racial profiles, with different school districts, and try to understand how does a large collective, what are some characteristics that happen at that level, and what actions can you take to influence that? But here, what we're interested in is organizations, which is in the title of the class, organizational behavior, and we haven't really talked about it so far. So normally I spend 2 sessions on this, but because I'm doing the T-group thing, I decided to have only 1 session on it. And it's going to be jam-packed with a lot of information, so get ready for that. So before I jump into the topic, I want to take a very large step back to introduce the topic. So first of all, to understand organizations, let's start with the understanding people, humans, as a species. So I will really have a very broad context. So like we share the fact that we are social, we share with other species. We're not the only species around that are social. So ants are social, wolves, cows, monkeys, people, we're social animals. Not all animals are social animals. Some animals don't live in societies. So bears, for example, you have bears who live on their own. Occasionally you have the mother bear with her cubs, but bears don't live in society. Right? They don't need each other to survive. So we need other people to survive. It's part of the blueprint of our survival to live in society. And that creates a question of how do we live in society? What is the best way to work together as a collective? So if you look at these, ant colonies, bee colonies, they have a different way of organizing themselves. They have a different division of labor. Different types of monkeys, chimpanzees and bonobos, for example, have a very different way of relating to each other in society. There's a whole branch of biology that is involved in the psychology of primates. It's called ethology, or the psychology of animals, the sociology and psychology of animals, understanding how monkeys, gorillas, chimpanzees, bonobos relate to each other and how they survive, right? So sociology is we study a very particular type of primate, which is people, right? We're a very particular evolved type of primate, which is people, but we share certain characteristics with monkeys, right? So understanding how monkeys relate to each other tells us about how we relate to each other.